Cowboy Nation, on this week's episode of the Big Star Show, we got a very special guest. This man was a member of the 3 Super Bowl champions for the Cowboys in the 90s, and in my opinion, the greatest dynasty of all time. He was a DB and a special teams whiz. We got Clayton Holmes. Clayton, how are you?
I'm doing wonderful, Eddie. Absolutely wonderful, buddy.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that, man. And, as a kid, I was a diehard Cowboy fan, and we had mentioned this before when we spoke. I was obsessed with this video game, Primetime Football for the Sega Genesis, and, I must have scored 1,000 touchdowns with you as a kick returner growing up.
Dude, that was when I first got to Dallas. That was a big plus for me because I went to North Greenville Junior College, and then I went to Carson Newman, which was an NAIA school. And the one thing that we were missing was a genuine strength, speed, and agility coach. So when I got to Dallas, I finally got a chance to get around someone that could help me get stronger, talk to me about running. I was naturally fast, but I got with a guy named Mike Wojcik. And when I got to Dallas, I was running a 4.3. I was running a 4.34, 4.32. About 4 months later, we had our first our test, and I ran a 4.22 and a 4.23. So I was the fastest Cowboy on the team. So that video game that you're talking about, that's why they had me so fast. They really do base you on what your 40-yard dash time was. So that's why I was an outstanding kick returner on the video game.
Oh, yeah, man, and blazing speed, to say the least, for sure. Now, Clayton, let's backtrack a little. We'll get back to the days with the Cowboys. Let's take it back to Florence, South Carolina. I know you had many ups and downs throughout your life. Tell us a little bit about what it was like growing up in South Carolina, when you first fell in love with sports, and maybe some of the challenges you faced growing up.
Okay, I'm 47 years old, and after football, I've been doing a lot of studying to figure out who I was and looking back at my life. And my first love was baseball. Before I started playing baseball, there was not one time in my life that I could think of, and I was 10 or 11 years old, and there was no time in my life that I could think of where anybody patted me on my back, said, good job or anything like that. I grew up in a home. My mom had 4 sons. We all had different dads, and we struggled. We really struggled. There was not a lot of affection. So I remember playing baseball, and you know how it was back in the day when we were playing. It wasn't like it is now. If you didn't play, you sat on the bench. And the only time I would get in the game is when we were, absolutely killing a team. So when the coach put me in the game, and I was a real shy, quiet kid, coach put me into the game, I would go to the batter's box, and I would just stand there and strike out. Not swinging the bat, just he would just throw strikes and strike me out. Well, this one time, we were killing his team. The coach puts me into the game, and I go up there, and I'm doing the exact same thing. Strike 1, throws the ball, strike 2. The next thing you know, it's a full count. And the coach, standing on third base, he called a timeout. He called me over to him, and he said one of the simplest things that anybody had ever said to me, Eddie. I walked over to him. I had my head down because normally when somebody's calling me over, I'm about to get my butt chewed out. But he called me over to him. He said, hey, Clayton. And I looked up at him, and he just had this bright look on his face and this little smile. He said, hey, son. He said, swing the bat. And I said, okay, coach. And I go back to the batter's box, and the only thing I'm thinking about is swinging the bat, swing the bat, swing the bat. So I'm standing in the batter's box, and he throws the pitch, and I swing, and I make contact, but it's a foul ball. But Eddie, the guys in the dugout went crazy. They were like, oh, man, he touched it. Did you see that? And I turned around and looked over my right shoulder, and they were sincerely, jumping up and down. They were happy. And that was the first time anybody showed any excitement for anything that I did. And Eddie, when I turned back around, man, it was like I was in the Matrix. Everything was just moving slow. He threw the next pitch, and it just seemed like it was moving in slow motion. and I step into it, and I'm left-handed, and ting, I smacked the ball in the right field, and it was one of the best feelings that I've ever felt go through my hands. And I remember running to first base, and I hear everybody screaming, "Drop the bat! Drop the bat!" So I dropped the bat, I hit first base, hit second base, and then I had a stand-up triple was my first hit. And
wow.
the coaches pat me on the back. The guys in the dugout are jumping up and down. And Eddie, I started laughing, and I couldn't stop laughing. And I was getting so embarrassed that I was bent over, and I was laughing, and all of a sudden I stood up, but I couldn't see. It was black. And then all of a sudden I seen this light, sort of like the sunshine, but my eyes were still closed. I seen this light at first, and then all of a sudden my vision came back to me, Eddie, and then I seen this bright red dirt. I see this bright green grass. I hear the birds chirping. There was a swimming pool beside us, and I hear the kids in the swimming pool jumping and playing. And as I look back at that memory, what that did was when I hit that baseball, it put me right in the moment. And before that, I was always thinking about when I got home, was I going to get my ass cut? Was I going to get a beating for something that I did? I didn't know where my next meal was coming from. I was always in my head. But when I hit that baseball, it put me right into the moment. And then there was something in my center, in my stomach, that was tingling. And that was the feeling that I've been chasing ever since that I've been involved with sports and with baseball, football. It was that feeling inside of me that put me in the moment, and that was the one good thing about football. There is there's not a more magical feeling than feeling like you are a split second ahead of time. Like you know what's about to happen. A lot of athletes call it getting into that zone.
Right.
And that was the reason why I played sports. It wasn't that I really loved football and baseball. I just loved the fact that that's how I got my praise. I wasn't good in school. I was actually terrible in school. So the only way that I was getting my praise was from doing something great in sports. So that was my drive to make me perform and play like I did. I love getting patted on the back. I love when my coaches needed me. It just really brought out the best of me. And that's what saved me from not going down the path that my brothers were on, which was a path of crime and stealing. I was 13 years old when I left my mom, and I moved in with my dad and his new wife, which was she was an up-and-coming nurse. And my dad worked on the railroad, and like I said, my stepmom was an up-and-coming nurse. So I got into some trouble. My stepmom convinced my dad to take my mother to court and get custody of me, and they won. And that was one of the worst days of my life. As I look back at it, it was the best day of my life. That was the first time I tried to kill myself. My mom, we came from court, and my mom opened the door, told me to go into the house. And when I went into the house and I went into my room, I heard the door slam, and my mom ran down the hall. She was crying. She said, "They're going to take all of my kids from me," because my oldest brother was in jail. My next to the oldest brother was in jail, and it was just me and Clinton. And then I was on my way to jail, but I got put on probation, and my dad got custody of me. But seeing my mom cry for the first time, it just really it broke my heart. But as I look back at it, it was the best thing that happened to me, Eddie.
Wow. Yeah, I can imagine how that could be tough for a young kid at the time, but fortunately for you, it worked out. What was I love that baseball story, Clayton. That's amazing. That's what it's all about. And I agree that there's no feeling like being out there on the field and succeeding. What was it like growing up? Well, what was the situation? Was it really a poverty-stricken neighborhood you grew up in?
Yes, there was a place. I grew up in Florence, South Carolina. There's a place in Florence that is called the Bottom. I mean, literally called the Bottom. And we didn't live in the Bottom. We lived on the outskirts. And a lot of people don't understand what starving means. I mean, there were times where we hadn't eaten for a couple days, and it's hard to get anyone to follow any kind of rules or laws when they're starving. So my brother introduced me to stealing out of the store when I was around 7 or 8 years old. And that was actually another time where I got praised for the first time. My brother took me to the store. My oldest brother, his name was Bam Bam. And if Bam told you to do something, you did it, or there were some serious consequences. So he told me to go into the store. He told me the things to get. We went to the store. I did that. We came out of the store. He said, hey, did you get everything? You get it? I said, yeah. So I showed it to him. And then he put his arm around me. He's like, oh, man, you did it. You did it, man. You did it. So I'm walking down the street, eating chocolate. I'm happy. My brother just patted me on the back. So what do you think that's going to encourage me to do more? To steal. I got a good feeling from it, and I was satisfying a basic necessity, which is eating. So again, bruh, my life makes complete sense to me why I've done all the good and bad things in my life. There's no question about it. And I'm just thankful that I've made it through all of that. And now I have the opportunity to help other kids, other parents understand what's going on and why people are choosing to do some of the things that they're doing.
Wow, I guess it's like the old saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, huh?
Yes, sir, buddy. Yes, sir.
Wow. Now, Clayton, let me ask you, what were the police like in your neighborhood? Like, how did you feel growing up about the police in your neighborhood?
The police in my neighborhood really wasn't a big problem back then. I remember I was really young and I wasn't really getting into too much trouble, so I don't remember too many incidences with the police back when I was growing up in the late 70s, early 80s. I was born in 1969.
Okay, that's great. Clayton, who were some of your biggest influences as a kid and some of your role models?
My biggest influences as a kid and my role model, once I got into football, I guess you could say Walter Payton was my role model. But my biggest influence and role model, I would say, would have to be my high school coach. He was my biology teacher, and he was my high school coach. And Eddie, if it wasn't for that man and a lot of other people, I would not have made it to the NFL. I remember after my senior year in high school, Coach English called me into his office, and he said to me, he said, Clayton, are you thinking about going to college? And I started laughing. I said, college? I said, Coach, I don't even know if I'm going to graduate from high school. And he looked in my eyes, Eddie. He put his hand on my leg, and he said, son, he said, you're going to graduate from high school. And he said, you're going to go to college. And he said, hell, son, you can play professional football.
Wow.
And Eddie, my head was lifted just a little bit higher, not in arrogance, but just in confidence. He said something to me, and he meant it, and I felt it. That was in 1988. So when I left his office, Eddie, here's the magic. Here's why I believe in the laws of attraction. My next class was English class. I was on cloud nine. I went into English class. I pulled out my notepad, and I started practicing my autograph. So here's the cool thing. I started practicing my autograph. Clayton Holmes, and then I started writing Dallas Cowboys. Clayton Holmes, Dallas Cowboys. Clayton Holmes, Dallas Cowboys on the entire page, and then I flipped the page, and I did the exact same thing again, and then I wrote the Chicago Bears a couple times because that was my second favorite team. That was 1988. My coach calls me back into his office about 3 weeks later, and he said, Clayton, he said, there's this junior college in Greenville, South Carolina. They just started a football program. They were called North Greenville Junior College. And he said, they're going to offer you a full scholarship. They're going to pay for your book. And we got your scholarship. And then I told him that, I just had my son right before my senior year in high school. And my dad told me, he said, you ain't going to no damn college. He said, you're going to get out here and work. You're going to take care of this baby. I'm not taking care of no baby. So I told my coach that. And he said, Clayton, he said, don't worry about that. He said, I'll talk to your dad. He said, there's a work-study program that colleges have, and when you get into school, they'll get you on a work-study program, and you can send some money back for your son. So my coach talked to my dad, told him what we could do. I go to North Greenville Junior College. I get on work-study, and my dream was to go to Clemson, but my grades were just terrible. So after 2 years at North Greenville, I still couldn't get into Clemson, and my coach, Mike Taylor, called me into his office and said, hey, Clayton, I know you want to go to Clemson, son, but your grades are just not good enough. He said, but there's going to be a guy coming here from Tennessee, and he only wants to see one person, and that's you. He said his name is Ken Sparks. He said they just won the NAIA National Championship last year. He said they're playing for it again this year. And he said, you should really sit down and talk to this guy. So Coach Sparks came in, and he said to me, he said, so are you planning on trying to get into the NFL after college? And I said, yes, sir. And I was playing quarterback and wide receiver at the time. And he said, well, I think you'll make it there if you move to defensive back. And I'm like, dang. I was like, man, no more touchdowns. I love scoring touchdowns. And he said, I really think you have a better opportunity if you move to defensive back. Because he was right. We was running the wishbone, and my arm was terrible. It's 3rd and 18, and we're running triple option. So I was like, okay. So I trusted Coach Sparks. I go to Carson Newman. My first year there, I'm NAIA All-American. I got MVP of NAIA in 1991.
Wow.
Basically the same thing in 1992. Now the buzz is out about me getting drafted. The Cowboys, the Redskins, everybody comes to work me out. So now let's fast forward to April. I think it was April the 12th, 1992, the draft. I knew I was going to get drafted. And by the way, when my coach sat me in the office, he told me, he said, you were going to get to college. So that was, we can check that off. I got to college. And then he said to me, hell, son, you can play professional football. So it's April the 12th. It's the day of the draft. And my dad and them had a big cookout and started about 11 o'clock. And, you know, around about 5 o'clock, everybody's a little tipsy, and they're coming up to me, hey, man, you going to get drafted, man? You think you're going to get drafted? And I went to my dad, and I was like, hey, Pop, I said, things are getting a little crazy. I said, I'm going to just go into your room. I'm getting ready to shut the door. But I said, if the phone rings, don't answer the phone. So I go in his room. I close the door. I sit on his bed, and I'm like, man, I don't know if I'm going to get drafted today. And I fall, and I lay back on the bed, and as soon as my head hit that pillow, the phone rung. So I jump up, and I answer the phone, and this guy says, can I speak to Clayton Holmes? I said, this is Clayton Holmes. He said, hi, this is Jerry Jones. How would you like to be a Dallas Cowboy? And I said, I would love to be a Dallas Cowboy. He said, is your agent there? I said, no, but we can get him on the phone. So I got Tank on the phone. Those two talk. Tank called me back in about 15 minutes with these horrible words right here. He said, okay, Clayton, I just turned down the offer from the Cowboys, but I think we did the right thing. And I was like, I said, okay, Tank. And I hung the phone up, and I said, what the hell just happened? I said, did we just turn down the offer from the Cowboys? And I was like, oh, man, here we go with this negotiation stuff. So about 30 minutes goes by. Tank called me back, and he said, hey, Clayton. He said they must have wanted you really bad because they wanted to draft me the last pick in the second round, but they weren't offering the right money. So they traded the last pick in the second round for the second pick in the third round, offered the same money, and that made everything kosher. And Tank said to me, he said, hey, man, he said, congratulations, you're a Dallas Cowboy. And, man, the tears just started running down my face. I immediately thought about that, sitting with my coach and what he said. He said I was going to get to college, and he said I could play professional football. I go in the English class, and I'm practicing my autographs, and I'm writing the Dallas Cowboys all over the sheet, and then they call me. So, again, I just really feel like everything that I'm doing is destined. It's just been magical. And my job, whether things have been good or bad, is to learn from them. There's just been a lesson in everything, and I can honestly say that I have learned. I have no more questions, no more wonder about why this and that. I understand perfectly everything that has happened in my life, bruh, and now I just want to help. That is all I want to do.
And that's great. And you know, I think that you really do have a platform to help. You know, it's amazing how when, you know, your coach, he put that in the universe, you believed it and you achieved it. That's amazing. Clayton, you know, when you look back at the type of guys Jerry Jones liked, you know, it's almost like you were a Jerry Jones kind of guy, being a blazing speedster. What was your relationship like with Jerry Jones and even Coach Jimmy Johnson?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. After my football career was over, I did a lot of contemplating and thinking. When you turn professional and you've been playing football all your life and you've been needed and people have been depending on you, but when you turn pro, if you're not drafted in that first round and maybe early in that second round, man, it's just like starting all over again. And when you're a rookie, they really kind of overlook you sometimes. And I play my best, like I said, if my coach really needed me. And I couldn't wait to build a relationship with Coach Johnson. And I was building that relationship, and then I tore my ACL in 1993, and I was just about to get that starting job. But if I would have developed a relationship with Coach Johnson like I had with all of my coaches, I probably would have been like Dal Green. I would have played 12 years in the NFL, but I really didn't build that relationship with Coach Johnson that I wanted to build. I remember the first time that Coach Johnson ever said anything to me, it was our first game was a Monday night game against the Washington Redskins. We won the toss for punt return, and I remember being on the sideline, and this was the first time that Coach Johnson ever really said anything to me personally, and that is a man. He is magical. You can feel the energy coming from this guy. He just pulls out the best in you. And we were walking. I was walking up the sidelines, and me and Coach Johnson passed each other, and he looked at me and he said, "Clayton," he said, "you hold on to that damn football." And I was like, "Yes, sir." And man, I never fumbled the football on kickoff returns, and I got laid out a couple times. I remember the Houston game. I got smacked really hard. Coach Johnson came over to me and he said, "Hey, Clayton," he said, "you way to hold on to that damn football." And I was just like, yeah. So my relationship was just starting to build with Jimmy. And like I said, I tore my ACL in 93. Jimmy and Jerry fall out. Jimmy leaves Dallas, and I'm just like, man. Jimmy leaves Dallas and goes to Miami. A couple years later, Coach Johnson signed me to come to Miami when my contract was up. But by that time, I just started smoking marijuana. I remember when you get a positive test for the NFL, every team has a psychiatrist, and you have to go in and talk to the psychiatrist. And I remember when I first walked into that psychiatrist's office, he sat me down. He said, "Hey, Clayton," he said, "have you ever been physically, mentally, or sexually abused?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Which ones?" I said, "All of them." He said, "Well, tell me about it." And bruh, it was like Pandora's box had opened. I was like, oh my God. He made me remember about something that it would come to me, but I wouldn't sit there and contemplate on it. My mind would do whatever it does, or our minds do whatever our minds do. Whenever we've been through something traumatic, it has a way of blocking it out. But this guy's sitting me down in front of him, and he's making me recall all of these things. So I remember walking out of that office, man, I looked up in the sky. I said, what the hell am I doing in Dallas? I hated myself. I hated my parents. I hated anybody that had anything to do with my career. And that's when you can say my career started going downhill. So when I went to Miami, man, I was right in the thick of treatment. And then my brother passed away when I was in Miami, the one that put me through a lot of the sexual abuse. And, and I had to pay for a funeral. So I was just really lost at that time. And the only regret that I have about my career is that I let Coach Johnson down, because he brought me to Miami to be the starting cornerback. But like I said, man, I was gone by then, bro. I was trying to figure out who I was, and this may sound weird, but if I had to do it all over again, I would want it to happen just like it happened, because I'm a stronger person. There's no telling what I would have done if I would have played football for 10 or 12 years and was still holding all this stuff inside that I was holding inside of me. And that's probably why I was playing football so well, is because I was just running from who I was. And then I got to a point where, okay, there ain't no more running. It's time to face things now. So I didn't build that relationship with Coach Johnson like I wanted to. And again, that is my only regret, is that I let Coach Johnson down in Miami. And I'm going to see him again in February. Troy Aikman is having a Super Bowl reunion for the 1995 Super Bowl. So, and Coach Johnson is going to be there. So I can't wait to see him, talk to him. And I'm also going to see if Troy will give me 5 minutes on the microphone to talk about my experience with the Cowboys and why I felt like we performed at the championship level that we performed at. Emmitt Smith had a reunion about, 4 or 5 years ago for the 92, 93 Super Bowl. And I was surprised that he let me and Kenny Gant go up on stage and talk about Joe Avazano, who was our special teams coach. And Troy was there too, so he had a chance to hear me speak then. So I would definitely love this opportunity when I get down there this time to talk and hopefully touch the heart of Coach Johnson, and then me and him can have a nice little talk when I'm done at the event.
Yeah, that'd be great, and I'm sure that'll be an amazing time getting to relive and share some of those great memories you had. Let's backtrack a little bit. You grow up, you have a rough childhood, you go to college, you have great success, you get drafted by your favorite team, the Dallas Cowboys. So obviously you're on cloud nine, and then you go and you win a Super Bowl as a rookie. I mean, what kind of? I can't imagine how great that must have felt, and how different things must have just been, and how you just must have been living in a different world. It must have felt like.
It did. And the first mistake that I made when I was little, I thought that if I made it to the NFL and I signed a contract for $1.3 million, I got $250,000 up front. And bruh, I honestly thought that when you turn like 21, that something happened with your thinking and you like became a man. I thought money would make you smarter or wiser, and I honestly thought like something was going to happen and I was going to like turn into a man. And I remember walking out of the mall one day, I had these bags in my hand, and it hit me. I was just like, damn. I was like, I got this money. I said, but I'm still the same person. And I said, that's not good to have money, being dirt poor, not knowing what a bank account was until my senior year in high school, not being around people that save money. I grew up around people that cashed their checks and they went and spent it. So I had no clue about money. I thought I was a millionaire meant to me that you would never go broke. So I thought I was like a millionaire. So that was the first mistake I made. And then we go to the Super Bowl. So again, I'm kind of expecting the same thing to happen. We go to the Super Bowl. It's at the Rose Bowl. Michael Jackson performed at halftime. Over 100,000 people in the stands. We win the Super Bowl. And don't get me wrong, man. It was one of the best feelings that I've ever felt in my life. But we were riding back on the plane a day or two later, and everybody was asleep. And I remember I was about to sleep, and I kind of jumped up and I looked around, and I was just like, damn. I said, is that it? I said, that's all? Just like, well, damn, that didn't do it either. So I've been always looking for something to make me happy with myself and just happy with life. And once that, that wore off, that we just won the Super Bowl, I had that epiphany of like, okay, now what? What's next now? So that also deflated me a little bit. And I remember now, I wasn't playing football because I love football. I remember the first day in Dallas, guys were talking about the best running backs in the game. They were naming all of these players that I had no idea of. And I was just like, damn, I really don't know. I said, these guys love football. And it wasn't that I loved it. Again, I just love how it made me feel and the things that it could make me do. So again, that was another little deflation because again, I've always been just looking for something that made me feel how I feel now. I'm proud of who I am. I'm proud of where I come from. I love my parents to death. I love all of my brothers. I have no more anger and blame in me. And I thought something would happen like that from signing a contract and winning Super Bowls, but it didn't happen. So I just look at football as a wonderful blessing, but all it was a stepping stone for me to do what I'm really supposed to be doing. And that is, again, helping people understand that they have a purpose. There's something inside of each and every one of us that we are amazing at. And I just want to, help people find that dream inside of us, that thing inside of us that makes us special. So that's what I feel like everything that I've been through has been for.
That's great, and that's great that you were able to find that peace and that happiness. I'm happy for you, and I really admire your story and where you came from, and you battling the ups and downs that you did. Let me ask you something, Clayton. Who were some of your best friends on the team back in the Cowboys?
Kenny Gantz was my best. He was my best friend. Kevin Smith. Okay. Yeah, Kevin Smith was a really good friend, and Darren Woodson. Darren Woodson was also a really good friend of mine too.
I read a quote that Darren Woodson said about you, and so the DB stuff together. I see. I read a quote Darren Woodson said, out of everyone that he's ever played with, he put you, as pure athletic ability, he'd put you up there with anyone, or in the top 4 or something along those lines. I mean, that's high praise from a guy like Darren Woodson.
It is, and I can't wait to read that quote. But yeah, man, we again, Michael Irvin was a big inspiration as far as working out goes, and again, that I tell people, man, that when we practiced in the 90s, man, it was like a game. Every practice was like a game. I don't care if you were hurting the night, if you went out and you partied, you had a little hangover. We had this little hill that we had to walk down, and man, as soon as you started walking down that hill, the trash talking started between the players, between the coaches, and it was like a game every practice. And I had to cover Alvin Harper and Michael Irvin and them every day. And Mike didn't want you out there half-assing with him. Mike wanted you out there covering him, man. So it was like a game, even at practice, man. So I was around a great group of guys that really showed me how to do what we did, and that was just win championships. It was just amazing, the group of guys that I was around.
Oh, I can imagine. I read a lot about you guys, being my favorite team. And, Michael Irvin was one of my favorite players. And I actually had the pleasure of meeting Michael Irvin years ago. And, I don't get starstruck. I met a lot of people, but, man, what an experience that was for me. And so everything you read about him was true. He was really the ultimate leader, huh?
Yes, he was, man. He was a clown. I remember the first time I met Mike, this was at one of the mini camps. We were sitting in the locker room. Practice was over. We just got out of just getting out of the shower. And then here come Michael Irvin, one of the last ones out of the shower. I remember he walked through the curtain and he said, "Hey," he said, "Hey." He walked, there's a big star in the middle of the locker room. And he pulled off his towel and said, "Hey, This right here is what all y'all wives want right here. And, man, everybody in the locker room just fell out laughing, man. Mike was just, he was humorous, man. I've never met anybody in my life that worked harder than Michael Irvin worked, man. Again, it was a pleasure and honor to play with him, to be around him, to cover him every day in practice. It was a pleasure, man.
Wow. Yeah, I could imagine. And, oh man, that's great. Clayton, another thing I read, and, it's pretty clear from, the stories, I've heard, without naming names, you read about how hard you guys partied and some of the wild stories. How wild and how true were some of these stories that, you can read in Jeff Pearlman's books and, the legend of the White House? How wild did it used to get with you guys partying back in the day?
And I can say every team has a handful of guys that they play hard and they party hard. I think that's just a fact. And every team has a handful of guys that, like I said, they play hard, they party hard. And after I signed a 3-year deal with the Cowboys, and then I signed another 2-year deal with the Cowboys. But after that 3rd year, like I said, I was already kind of on the decline. I wasn't hanging out with guys that smoke weed. I didn't smoke weed. I drank. My thing was just drinking. And then, when that therapist got into my head, I found myself veering over to the guys that, like to party hard, and got caught up in some of that stuff. But that, like I said, man, that's just life. And every team has that group of guys that play hard and they party hard. Some guys are really smart that party hard, and then you got some of the guys that think they're invincible and can, do and get away with anything. So again, yes, there was a lot of truth to some of the stuff. Some of the stuff was blown a little out of proportion, but the bottom line is overall, yeah, there's some things that go on with every team, in my opinion.
Oh, and I'm sure you're absolutely right. No doubt about that. You put a bunch of young guys, in that situation with a lot of money. It's inevitable. I'm sure. How crazy were the fans? I mean, at that time, how did people treat you out in Dallas?
Oh, that was the other thing too. I never had the big head. I always compared myself to myself. I tried to get better than I was yesterday. And then when I got to Dallas, I couldn't wait to meet Kevin Smith and Darren Woodson, all of these guys that went to the D1 schools. And then when I got there, that was my first time like, damn, these guys, they're just like me. And, I'm a little bit faster than these guys. So I got a little cocky, not outrageously cocky, but that was my first time where I stopped focusing on myself and comparing myself to myself. And that is, I can say that is one of my downfalls, is when I started looking at myself as compared to them. And then you go to the Dallas Cowboys, America's team, and then we go to the Super Bowl our first year. They spoiled us, man. You had car dealerships giving us free cars and trucks to drive for, like 2 tickets to every home game. You didn't have to wait in line any place. Everywhere you went, man, it was just like first class. And if you're not careful, your head can really swell up with that kind of stuff going on. So they are some beautiful fans in Dallas. So yeah, all of that stuff got to my head too.
Oh, that's great. I can imagine what an experience that was. I mean, you come in as a rookie and you had a great year. You made a ton of special teams tackles. You recover a fumble in the Super Bowl. I mean, that's something that you can only dream of.
Yes, man. Yep. Absolutely beautiful stuff. And again, man, it's and then one thing that football does too is that it really has you into your ego a lot. And you really have to be careful and just stay humble, especially if you've been a humble person all of your life. There's been some people that they've been vibing off of their ego, and they get off on that. But I wasn't the type of person that lived behind my ego. I was the best player in my high school. I was the best player at the colleges that I went to, but you couldn't tell that just from talking and hanging around with me. And then, I got to Dallas and I got a little cocky. Again, it wasn't anything outrageous, but it just wasn't me.
It's funny you said that, because everything I've read about you, when they describe you as a person, it always says very nice, respectful, modest, polite. And, from my experience talking with you over the past, couple of weeks, I agree 100% with that. Speaking of being the best player on your team, was there ever a point in your life where you were not the fastest person on the team or around, the fastest kid in the neighborhood?
No. When I first started playing sports, I wasn't always fast. When I left high school, I was running a 4.53.
Which is fast for a high school kid.
Yeah, and then every year, my 40, around my junior year in college, junior year in high school, is when I consider myself to be fast. I went to state in my senior year. I won. I still have the South Carolina state record in the long jump. I set that in 1988. It's the longest standing record in the state of South Carolina that hasn't been broken. And I jumped 24 feet 7 3/4 inches. So since my 11th grade year in high school, I don't remember getting beat in my junior year in high school. I got beat in the 100 in the state. But other than that, I was the fastest wherever I went.
Wow. I'm glad you brought back up high school and college. There was something I wanted to ask you. I read that I know you played several sports in high school. How did you get into tennis?
Oh, so, I'm going to, it's not embarrassing.
No, tennis is a great game.
It is. Like I said, my grades were terrible, and I needed, my science teacher was also the tennis coach, and he coached the JV. And so I was failing school, and the coach was trying to figure out a way for me to get my GPA up. So I made a D in science that year. But my coach, this was the only time that anybody had ever given me a grade. Nobody given me a grade. Nobody took any SATs for me or anything. I always struggled in school. But right before my senior year, the science coach had raised my D to a B, and he asked me to play tennis. So I remember playing tennis. We'd get done with tennis, and I would run and jump the fence and go to the baseball game. I think it was tennis, baseball, and track was all at the same time. So I was trying to fit all of them in. So I remember just doing tennis and just stopped trying to make the baseball stuff and just stuck with track. So that was my only time getting a grade, and that's why I played tennis, because I needed the grade, and the coach said, well, I need you to come play tennis for me. So I played tennis that year.
Do you follow tennis at all nowadays, or are you pretty much done with the sport?
Yeah, I don't follow it. I do watch it every now and then. I haven't watched it in a long time. Like, I don't know who the number one tennis player is. I don't even know if Pete Sampras is still playing. But no, I don't keep up with it as much as I used to.
Yeah, I understand. Well, that's great. That was something I was surprised. You don't hear about too many football players playing tennis in high school. So I actually thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But you were a tough guy, man. I don't think you've given yourself enough credit of how tough you were. I read a story about you playing a game with a fractured ankle, and not only playing but busting off a 60-yard touchdown with an air cast on. Is that a true story?
Yeah, I remember it was my second year at North Greenville College, and we just went 10-0. And right before the season started, I tore a ligament in my ankle. I remember going behind the training bus, the van. I remember crying. Went to the doctor, and he put this cast on my leg and told me I was going to have to be on there for about 6 to 8 weeks. I was basically going to miss all of the games except like the last 4. And bro, I remember he put that cast on my leg. I came home that night, and I got a knife, and I cut the cast off.
Wow.
Cut it off in, and I remember I went to practice, and the coach was like, Clayton, what are you doing, Clayton? What are you doing? I was like, Coach, we can just tape this up, Coach. I can go. And the coach told me, he said, no. He said, we got to put this cast back on. So we ended up putting the cast back on. It actually messed me up a little more because I would have had like 4 games to play, but I only ended up playing 2, and then they still stretched it in. So they had the air cast on. I missed the first like 7 games, and I came back for that next to the last game, man, and I had the game of my life with that air cast on. So I only played like 2 games my sophomore year. And then Coach Sparks still came down from Carson Newman and saw that talent in me and where my future was headed.
Wow, that's impressive. I want to get a few more questions before we move on to after football. How overwhelming was it, and what was it like? I know you become a pro athlete, and I'm sure a lot of hands are out. People are looking for people got their hands that they're looking for you to give them stuff. I'm sure there was a lot of gold diggers and groupies and old friends from out of the woodwork. How overwhelming was that for you?
That was very overwhelming, especially for someone like me. There's 2 types of people, man. When you grow up and you don't have anything, you're either going to be, and if nobody ever giving you anything, you're either going to be real stingy and be the same way, or you're going to be the type of person that I was. You're going to remember what it's like not to have anything. And if somebody asks you for something, you'll give them your last. Just knowing what it's like to be in that situation. And that's how I was. I was just, my heart was just huge. I don't care if I knew you 2 days, man. And if you asked me for $5,000 or something like that and you needed $5,000, I would get it without hesitation sometimes. And then growing up in a home where the women in my family were very dominant. So, the women that I was with ended up kind of being the same way too. So I was, for lack of a better word, man, a little pushover, when it came to things. So, looking back at my life and then when I lost it all and, I'm contacting family and friends, people to help out who I helped out, man, and just to get your back turned on you, that really hurt, but it still hasn't made me turn into somebody to go, screw you. You didn't look out for me. I'm not going to look out for you. Now, with that being said, I am no longer that sucker either, where I'm just going to give money away. If I really feel like this money is going to help, when I do start making my millions again, if I do feel like this is going to help the person, if I give this to them, I'm going to do that. But I know how to say no now. I know when somebody is taking advantage of me now. And I knew it then, but I didn't like confrontation because I was a real cool guy. But if you piss me off, man, it was like Jekyll and Hyde. So instead of me knowing that someone is lying to me and confronting them about it, I wouldn't confront them because I didn't like, and they definitely wouldn't like where it would have went if they would have chose to fuss or argue with me. So instead, I would just kind of get screwed over. But again, I'm mature now. And if I feel like somebody's screwing me over or this isn't right, I'm going to say something to them. And with me saying I'm going to say something to them, if they get angry and start saying things, I know to just stop. I know that, okay, this is nothing about me. This person is upset because they're dealing with one of the most honest people that they've ever met in their life. And so it's not really me that they're angry with right now. So I know how to stop and leave things alone now. So again, man, I've grown. I'm thankful for everything that I've went through. It's been a powerful lesson.
That's great, and you learned a lot of lessons the hard way, but the important thing is that you were able to learn them and grow into the man that you are today. That's great. Clayton, after 3 Super Bowl rings later, you an injury, and your NFL career comes to an end. You played a little indoor football. What was that like playing football at that level? Was it worthwhile? And how did you do on the field with the competition thing to write home about? Or
it was actually was a step down, and then I was actually still thinking about trying to get back into the NFL when I played a little indoor football. But bruh, that is some exciting football, man. There's always something exciting happening. Now, again, I was still at this depressed place in my life. I wasn't up. But it wasn't really bad playing indoor football. Like I said, man, it was pretty exciting, and I was just surprised that arena or indoor football really didn't jump off like I thought it would jump off. But that was some exciting football. Again, it wasn't the pros, but
Right,
I
of
enjoyed
course.
myself playing the few years that I played it.
Yeah, I played a little adult minor league football, which is, a non-paying league, but a lot of the guys, were playing to make it to the next level, which was the indoor football league. So I'm sure you dominated at that level. But anyway, so after the league, you go back home and things are rough, and I guess you weren't received very well when you went back home, huh?
No, I wasn't. That was the again, the other thing that really hurt too. I was going back home was the last place I wanted to go, but I had this epiphany one night, and it was like, okay, Clayton, it's time to go back home now, because I was just coming out of treatment, and I was talking about all of these things that had happened to me in my life, and then I got to the point where I was like, damn, did all these things really happen? So that's when I had this epiphany, like, okay, it's time to go home. And bro, when I went back home, it was verified from the time that I got in South Carolina that everything that I was talking about was correct. And again, man, Jeff Perlman wrote that article, From a Benz to a Bike. I really had a red Debo bicycle. I was riding around town. And again, bro, there was always something inside of me that was just like, I'm not going to give up, man. This is going to be tough. People can turn their lip up at me. Look, there you go on that bicycle right there. It's like, damn, I can imagine the stuff that they were saying. And then you be talking to somebody and you look out the corner of your eye. And I don't know if you've ever seen anybody kind of looking at you with their lip turned up. And you can just see all the looks. And I was just like, wow, man, that was the toughest 4 years of my life, from 2004 to 8 or 7 or 8, when Jeff Perlman wrote that article, that a lot of my friends started contacting me, and I didn't know how the heck I was going to get out of Florence, but Jeff Perlman called me and he said, hey, I'm doing this book about the Cowboys, and I would love for you to do an interview with you. And I said, hey, Jeff, I said, I'll do it. But I said, Jeff, I never had a chance to say goodbye to the game. I said, if you do an article on me when you're done interviewing me about the book that he wrote, I said I would do it. And he said, okay. And we did it. And again, it's why I'm where I'm at right now. It opened the door for me. I found some friends, high school, college, that they reconnected with me. And they're here since 2009. This is home. I love Wenatchee, Washington. And so again, yeah, just going home, man, that was the toughest part of it. Started smoking crack cocaine for the first time. On my 36th birthday, I started smoking crack. And then
wow.
I remember, this actually happened when I was in Dallas. I started doing cocaine. And I remember I was with a group of guys, man, and they were up for like 2 days. And they've done this before. And I've never stayed up all night just partying. I was like, okay, I'm going to try this. And I remember, man, I was drinking, doing some cocaine, and then all of a sudden, man, this thought came to me and said, Clayton, you might as well hang this up, bruh. This ain't you. When I tell you, bruh, that I really tried to become a drug addict, I tried to, like, now don't get me wrong, when you do cocaine enough and you run out, you're going to have your little, like, damn, I ain't got no more. And I didn't go through no shaking and looking for stuff, but those feelings are there, so don't get me wrong. That feeling was there, but as far as me, like, waking up and needing a drink or, like, I need cocaine, I honestly wanted to see how that felt. I was trying to become an addict, but I had this thought said to me, it's like, man, you might as well stop this. This ain't you. The longest I ever stayed up was like a day. And it was just like, man, this ain't you, man. This is just, it's not you. So the same thing happened when I, started the cocaine. I remember being the crack. Remember sitting in my room, And I was just like, that same thought. It's just like, man, this is not how you going to go out, man. So you might as well go ahead and stop all this shit right now and let's figure out how this is going to work out. And again, I didn't know how it was all going to work out, but there's always been something inside of me that said you are not a drug addict. That's not the path that you're going to go down. So you might as well just go ahead and stop this and deal with whatever it is that you're trying to deal with. And that's what I've done. I live in Washington State. My drugs of choice are cannabis. I'll stand in front of anybody. I don't care who it is. I love cannabis. I love marijuana. I understand why now. I live in the state of Washington. And what are the odds, bruh, of me getting suspended for cannabis? And when I was in treatment, I told them why I was smoking cannabis. Remember, it was only like 3 months that I started smoking cannabis and I had the positive test. So I remember being in a group one day and somebody was asking a question about why you're doing the things you're doing. And then it hit me. I was just like, okay, so why am I smoking marijuana? And it was just like, I'm smoking marijuana because it helps in my attention. I really focus on what it is that I'm doing when I have smoked marijuana. It helped with my appetite. That this has been something that plagued me all of my life. Whenever I work out really hard, I don't have an appetite. I just want to drink fluids. I was eating like one meal a day, even in high school. That was just me. I just was not a big eater. But when I turned pro, every Tuesday, every Monday, we had to weigh in. And every pound that you was over or under weight, it was $200. And my playing weight was supposed to be 188 pounds. And man, I was at like 175, 174. I remember I used to put a 5-pound weight in my job to go weigh in. So the cannabis would help me eat, and sex was better. My focus was better. So, I was just real honest. And again, all of that went in one ear and out of the other. So what's the odds of me ending up in Washington State, one of the first states that recreationally legalizes cannabis? And I'm not talking about it happened and then I moved here. I was here 3 years before it happened, and I was already studying about cannabis anyway. So then it became recreationally legal. So I actually got a job at a place called Have a Heart. They were one of the biggest medical facilities in the state of Washington. We had like 5 stores. So I was working in the medical industry before last year when they gotten rid of medical in the state of Washington, which is we're like the laughing stock of this whole cannabis movement now. They've actually gotten rid of medical and just made it all recreational. But before that time, I worked at a place called Have a Heart, and this is when I truly fell in love with cannabis. And the reason why, because nobody has been able to prove this is an absolute fact that this is a plant that is medicine. It is native to our body. There's not one thing in that plant that you're putting into your system that doesn't belong there. Your body produces THC, CBD, all the compounds in organic cannabis. Your body already makes those compounds. So it's like native to the body. It's an anti-inflammatory. It helps with pain. You got guys making millions of dollars playing professional ball, and they have no idea why they truly love the plant. So this is what made me really fall in love with it. This lady came in. She was in her late 60s, and she said, I hear that cannabis helps with pain. She said, I don't want to get high. She said, I don't want to smoke it, but I heard that you guys have some creams and some salves that you could use for pain, and I want to try it. So I gave the lady 3 of our products. One of the products is called a Remedy Stick, and it's great for migraine. It's like a big tuba chapstick, but it's a lot bigger and longer than that, wider. And you just rub it on the area that you're having pain, and then you kind of rub it in, and then, the pain goes away. So
wow.
I gave the lady the Remedy Stick, and it was 3 weeks later, They told me that the lady was back out front and there's no lock on the door, so we have to open the door for the customer before they come in. But I remember opening the door for her, man, and she moved me out of the way, and she went right to the counter where we had all of those remedy sticks, and she grabbed all of them. She said, I've been in pain for years, and I've never in my life found something that works as good as this right here, without her taking the other, I don't know if they're opioids, but the pain medicine prescribed from doctors. You know, that stuff can be addictive, and you can have withdrawals. And she said this was the first thing that I've ever used that helped with my pain. And then that's when I really fell in love with what I was doing. And now one of my goals is to get with the NFLPA. There's a group of guys out here now. We're trying to get cannabis off of the NFL's banned substance list. We're trying to get it to be looked at as medicine. Now, I'm not giving guys the red light and saying, okay, you can smoke all you want now. It's like, no, man. If you can't come to work drunk, you can't play in a football game drunk, and it's the same thing that's going to apply with cannabis. You can't come to work high. You can't be driving around smoking. Now, if you're in the comforts of your home, just like with alcohol, I remember after every football game, man, we would walk onto the plane, and they had these big 2-foot coolers filled with Coors Light. And we could grab as many as we want and get on the plane. And then, you know, the trainer would come around and go, hey, you need any Vicodin? And again, now, I'm not saying that the trainer gave us 4 and 5 Vicodin. It was what was recommended. You get 1 or 2 Vicodin. So, you know, we do that. We land where we got to go, and we drive home. My thing is, you treat cannabis, actually better than you do alcohol. It's like, if you're in the comforts of your home, man, learn about this plant. Learn what indica and sativa mean. Learn the ones that help with inflammation. Learn the ones that really help with pain. Learn about the ones that help you with your sleep. This stuff is medicine. So if you want to use this in the comforts of your own home, you're welcome to it. And that's how this plant should be, and that's how it's going to be, bruh, because they have no evidence, no proof of this plant harming anyone. If anything, alcohol is the worst thing on this planet for people and athletes to be drinking. You get drunk, you want to fight, you want to beat up your wife. If anything, man, cannabis makes you think, man. It makes you want to reason more. So again, I think guys just need to, a lot of people just need to be educated on what this plant truly is. And so it's just been part of my journey too. I left millions of dollars on the table because I got suspended. So again, bro, what are the odds of me ending up in Washington State? Again, I feel like everything has been destined. Everything has been destined for me. And I'm not afraid to stand in front of anybody and say, I love cannabis. I love marijuana, and I can tell you why. I respect it, and I am going to make that known, bro.
Well, you know, and that's some great irony for sure. And you know what, Clayton? I 100% agree with you. I've always been a supporter of the legalization and the benefits of marijuana. In fact, like you said, if there is any evidence, it's that it does help people. It is a medicine, and you know, I know it helps with seizures, it helps with pain, it helps with all types of illnesses and things of that nature. So that was great that you shared that with us, and I agree 100%. I'd love to hear more about that remedy stick. You know, my mother's got really bad arthritis, and you know, that sounds like something that I think could be very effective for a lot of people, for sure.
Yes, it's called the remedy stick, and there are a lot of creams and salves that you can use. And the main, one of the other main components in cannabis is CBD. So you can actually there are plants that you can grow that have little to no THC in it, and then you're still going to get all the health benefits from the plant. But there are some amazing creams out there, and there are no better people than to try that on than the elderly. Just like, hey, just rub this cream on your hands, and you know, just let me know how you feel. You're not going to be, it's not going to be any euphoria. You're not going to be high. None of that. That's just kind of an added bonus to it, and the THC also helps with pain and stuff too. So again, people just really need to understand what sativas and indicas are. If you're already a upbeat kind of a person and you're just already kind of hyper, the last kind of cannabis that you want to smoke is something sativa dominant, because sativa picks you up. It keeps you alert. And indicas, you want to think of in the couch. The indicas, the more indica, the more you are just going to chill, man. The more you don't want to move, your body's just going to relax. And then you got hybrids. You got those ones that's in between. It's just like, I hate keep using the reference of alcohol, but it's just like alcohol when it comes to beer and liquor and wine. There are certain ones that you don't drink. They mess your stomach up. They give you headaches in the morning. So you can't just label all beer as bad just because you had a bad incident with drinking Flip Malt Liquor Bull. It's like, no. And it's the same thing with cannabis. You just have to know your body type, and then you go and talk to someone that's knowledgeable in cannabis, and I guarantee you they're going to direct you to a few strains that's going to help you. Because, again, remember, the plant is native to your body. If it's organic, there's nothing foreign going into your body. Nothing.
Absolutely.
Everything in that compound, again, your body produces that.
Wow, that's great. And we could, I think we can easily talk another hour on this topic alone for sure.
Exactly.
I'm on the same page with you, Clayton. And New Jersey, the only thing keeping it from becoming legal in New Jersey, where I live currently, is the governor won't sign off, and he'll be out soon. And before you know it, in 20 years, we'll be laughing about the day when there was the marijuana prohibition.
Yeah. If alcohol can make its way back, bruh, cannabis is going to make its way back. Because, again, man, it has never, ever killed anyone. Coffee has killed more people than like cannabis. If anything, man, you overdo it, you're just going to fall asleep.
Right.
Now, there are instances where people are mixing cannabis with alcohol. You may get into an accident, but I mean, as far as like the plant killing you itself, like alcohol can kill you. It can literally kill you itself. If you drink too much of it, it can destroy your liver. It can kill you. Cannabis will not do that. If anything, it's going to help heal your body. And it's just good that all of this information is coming out now. You got women on TV that have kids with epileptic seizures that are banging their heads against the wall, and then they give them a CBD product, and the kid stops shaking. The kid can function now. Man, we are out of our minds, bro, to be treating this plant the way that we treat it, but that's the powers that be did that to us, man. Made us look at this plant like that. But it's a shame.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder why.
It's money, because you got hemp can make trees, you got the pharmaceutical companies, and if you got this plant that can do all of the stuff that these pharmaceuticals are doing, then they're not going to make any money. So that's why they've done what they've done to it, because you can grow it yourself. You can grow your own medicine. So can you imagine what that's going to do to the pharmaceutical company when you don't have to go to them for damn near no more of the stuff that the medicine that they're giving you, because you can find relief from that plant.
Right.
And
big pharma for sure.
Yes, buddy. Yep. It's all been about money. Yep.
And that's certainly unfortunate for the people. And Clayton, I agree with your views, and I respect that, and I certainly want to talk more about that in the future with you. Before I let you go, I took up enough of your time today. I just want to thank you for coming on, and I just want to throw a couple random questions out at you about back to football before I let you go. Who do you got winning the Super Bowl this year, Clayton? And
again, I'm not saying it just because I'm play with the Cowboys. I really feel good about them and the Patriots. But I think the Cowboys are going to. I think the Cowboys are going to pull this off, man. They got that. They got that energy, that feel back there again. You can actually see it. What they're doing on offense is just spread to the defense also too. Now the defense still got me a little worried, but it's just good to see that camaraderie and that chemistry floating back around. So I really think the Cowboys are going to pull this off. I was thinking the Raiders are going to be there too, but since Carr hurt broke a bone, and we got a rookie in L.A. His first start is getting ready to be a playoff game. So that kind of pushed Oakland back out there. So I think Cowboys in New England.
Yeah, that's my pick as well, and as well as all of Cowboy Nation. I think we were hoping that you gave that answer. Well, again, Clayton, thank you so much for joining us. I really enjoyed this conversation. You told us a lot of great stories about your journey, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. And best of luck to you on all of your ventures.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate the opportunity, and anytime that you want, do this again. Again, we left off from the marijuana deal. This is going to be a hot topic, but yeah, anytime you need me for any more shows like this, bro, you just don't hesitate to give me a call. This was a really cool interview.
Oh, absolutely, and Clayton, I 100% will be reaching out to you again for that. We will definitely do this again. Thank you so much for coming on, Clayton Holmes.
All right, buddy. Thank you.